Thank you, Mina, for that wonderful song. What is our life? What will be our life without Christ? It's been a stressful week, I should say, trying to prepare for the message today. I think this year it's been a replacement week for many preachers who have not turned up for various reasons, and we as elders have had to stand by and prepare messages in very short notice. But nevertheless, I thank God for this privilege to stand before you, and I trust and believe that you will learn something from the study that we are going to be doing today. Welcome, brother. We have you with us. May you be blessed as you worship with us today. The title for today's message is Jonah's Ticket to Tarshish. Let's pray before we continue. Loving Father, Lord, we have come here to hear your word. I pray that you would be with your people, that you would bless each and every one of us present here, that you would make us understand the scriptures better, that we may draw closer to you. And not only drawing closer to you, but that we would share the knowledge that we have, the good news that we have, the love that you have for us, and for what you have prepared, what you have in store for us. Give us the courage to share with everyone that is in need. Open our hearts today as we study from your word. In Jesus' name I pray. As you can see the title, it is to do with the book of Jonah. The book of Jonah is a very short book. It's got only 4 chapters in it, and it's got 48 verses in it. And if you want to read it in one stretch, it won't take probably about 10 minutes for you to finish everything. Just a quick reading. You should be able to finish in 10 minutes. There's not much written in the Bible about Jonah himself. You can find about Jonah in another book, a little bit of him in another book. Does anybody know? Song of Solomon? Is it there? Okay. I can find that. Okay. It's also there in the book of 2 Kings. And it reads in the 15th year of Amaziah, the son of Joash. It goes on, and in this verse, in verse 25, it says, this is talking about Israel and everything, and it says, which he spake by the hand of his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet, which was of Gath-Hepher. Now this is the same Jonah that you see in the book of Jonah, the same kind of introduction, where it says, son of Amittai. So it is referring to the same Jonah as well. But nothing much has been said about him. The book of Jonah has drawn attention to many Bible skeptics. Many may have some kind of problems with the book of, I'm talking about Bible skeptics. They have problems with the book of Genesis, some of the things, especially with evolution and things like that. Noah's flood. There may be other things, about Jesus walking in the water and those kind of things. They may be skeptical. But book of Jonah draws a lot of interest among skeptics, especially because of 2 verses in this book. Those 2 verses are chapter 1, verse 17, it says, "Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Now skeptics don't believe that anybody can survive 3 days and 3 nights in a belly of a fish. Okay, that's what the skeptics would say. Children know the story of Jonah very well, isn't it? Yeah, everybody would know the story of the story of Jonah. The second verse is, "And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land." Okay, so they have problem with these two texts. How can this happen? It's not possible. Okay, is it possible? When you look at the story of Jonah, as if you read it in 10 minutes from verse 1, chapter 1 to the end of chapter 4, it would seem like it is an unbelievable story if you read it in a general way. Am I right? Okay. To an outsider, it would look like a very, very unbelievable, it can be like a fable. Is there a scientific proof to prove that this can actually happen? Well, science has evolved, so many times over and over. There have been so many things that have changed. So many views in science have changed in many ways. For example, cigarettes used to be prescribed for asthma. Can you believe it? Okay, this is medical science. That's what was prescribed. This was way back. But then it has changed now. They know that cigarettes are one of the causes for asthma. Okay, so this has been prescribed. So I don't care what science says regarding the book of Jonah or anything to do with the Bible. The Bible says it, and I believe it. Okay. I hope it is the same with all of us who are here. Moreover, Jesus himself talks about Jonah. We all know about that. Okay, it's recorded in the book of Luke, chapter 11, verse 29 to 30. And when the people were gathered thick together, he began to say, "This is an evil generation. They seek a sign, and there shall no sign be given it, but the sign of Jonas, the prophet. For Jonas was a sign unto the Ninevites, so shall also the Son of Man be to this generation." So Jesus completely believed in the story of Jonah, and that's why it's quoting here. And it is all the more because we are Christians, we believe in Christ. What Christ believed, we believe. Okay, so there's nothing to hide from that. So today we are going to go through the book of Jonah. I must confess and say, when you see the bulletin, the scripture reading there was chapter 3, verses 6 to 8. Okay, I put that with the hope of trying to cover the whole book, but I was not able to do that. We'll be cutting short in between, and let's see how it goes. Okay. Jonah chapter 1. Now the word of the Lord came into Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for the wickedness is come upon before me." One of the greatest understatements in the Bible could be what it makes of the city of Nineveh. Okay. It says the Nineveh was a great wicked city. Now that is to put it very, very lightly. Nineveh was the capital city of Assyria. If you Google on something called Assyrian reliefs, okay, you'll be, for images of Assyrian reliefs, you will come across many images, very gruesome images that you can see. They were like carvings. And these carvings were put on the walls of their houses, palaces. They were all enjoying that. These Ninevites are known to be brutal people. They loved violence. They loved bloodshed. They enjoyed doing all these things. I don't want to be too graphical in this, but I want to put it a little bit, maybe, I don't know if I should really say this, but just to give an example. They would impale a child, for example, with a sharp stick, like a hard stick, and they would impale through and through without. They knew science, okay? They knew science very well, so they used to impale in a way that it would go from one end to the other, maybe through the stomach, but it won't touch any nerve, so there is no bleeding, okay? They would do that, put them up, put the stick up, and the children would be lying on top, and they would put a small fire down and wait for the skin to boil, and then they would peel the skin out. Okay, they would peel the skin out, and it is said that some of the children, they used to take 2 weeks to die. Imagine, that was the brutality of these people. Some of them say that they were the Nazis of that time. Now, I had to tell this just to put a picture of what Jonah would have been thinking when this call was placed to him. We might, when we talk about the story of Jonah, we straight away say, come on Jonah, why are you running away from God? Just be obedient to God. Well, why couldn't you have been obedient and just go and do what God is asking you to do? But if you think of the things that he would have known, you might start thinking otherwise. What God had asked him in this verse, he's asking him to go to Nineveh, that great city, and he's asking him to preach there. This would have scared the wits out of him. Okay? Jonah knew who the Assyrians were. He knew what kind of city Nineveh was. He had heard stories. He had heard about the kings who were brutal like this. And I'm sure, the king would have loved. By the way, the incident, the illustration that I was giving about the children being killed. To the Ninevites, to the Assyrians, they generally liked all this violence and everything. But there was one people who they hated the most. And they were the Jews. Okay? So, the Jews, as Jonah was, he knew what would happen to him if he goes there as a Jew. And maybe he would have thought, oh, he's going to chop my head off and maybe put on his wall at the ceiling to look at it every night, something like that. But, did he take the right decision in what he did? What would have been going into Jonah's head? If you were in that place, what would have been going in your head? Would you be running away? Would you be bold enough to reason out saying that if we believe in God, He can protect us no matter what comes in our way? He can perform miracles if we are close to Him. Would that be our reasoning? Okay. Having said that, we also know of how people during the Reformation time, they did do that. And what happened to them? They were all killed. They went through such horrific times. They were persecuted, they were killed, they were punished in many ways. God asked Jonah to go.
Now, God had appointed Jonah. You see, even Jesus saying that Jonah was a prophet. Okay, he was appointed, he was on a mission, he was given a mission, and we see in verse 3 that instead of, okay, these are some of the Assyrian reliefs, some of the pictures that I just got from Google. In verse 3 we see, but Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa, and he found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. Now this is what he decided he is going to do. What would you have done if you were in his place? What would I have done? I don't know. I was inquisitive to know where Tarshish would have been, what Tarshish means. I tried to find from Google again, and Google was pointing to many stories, and some of them were saying that Tarshish could have been in UK, United Kingdom. Some were saying somewhere in between Spain, Sri Lanka, Philippines. Okay, we don't know where it was. It basically means that Jonah wanted to go as far away as possible from the presence of God. Okay? Can we go away from the presence of God? No. We can never do that. No matter if you're under the sea or high above the earth, no matter where we go, we are still in the presence of God. Why did he want to do? We saw the realities in Nineveh. He was so scared of it that he did not want to go. Okay. Now the stories that I said about children being impaled and all that, I was just not making it up. The Bible says things like that as well. Not maybe to that extent that I said. If you turn your Bibles to the book of Nahum, okay, chapter 1, verse 1 introduces the city of Nineveh. Okay, it says the burden of Nineveh, the book of the vision of Nahum, the thing. And then it goes on in chapter 3, from verse 1 to 3. It describes about what happens in Nineveh. Okay, it goes on to say, "Oh, to the bloody city, it is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. The noise of a whip, and the noise of the rattling of the wheels, and of the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots. The horsemen lifteth up both the bright sword and the glittering spear, and there is a multitude of slain, and a great number of carcasses, and there is none end of their corpses. They stumble upon the corpses." Okay, so this is just a description in the book of Nahum about the city of what happens there. Now, surely Jonah would have known all these things, and that's why he decided. He decided to go into the opposite direction that God asked him to go to. Let's continue to read the rest of the verses in the book of Jonah. Jonah chapter 1 from verse 4. "But the Lord sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. And the mariners were afraid, and cried every man unto his God, and cast forth the wares that were in the ship into the sea, to lighten it of them. But Jonah was gone down into the sides of the ship, and he lay and was fast asleep." Can you picture this? Okay, so the storm is there. They wanted to make the ship light, so they started throwing things that were in the ship into the sea so that the ship can be stable. And they were crying to their gods. Who were their gods? All these sailors were pagans in that land. Okay, so they were crying unto their gods, trying to stop the storm. And what was Jonah doing? He was fast asleep. He must have been a very heavy sleeper, Jonah. Or maybe he was very tired at that time, trying to run away from God. He must have been, literally running, and he was so tired that he went and slept at the bottom deck of the ship. The sailors had to go and wake him up. Even when the ship was like turning and tossing, they had to go there to wake him up. Okay. You need to understand what is happening here, what Jonah is going through here. Now, Jonah was down in his faith with God. In other words, Jonah was down in his relationship with God. And just as we read in these verses, Jonah went down to, where did he go first? In the first few verses, he went down to Joppa. Okay, and then after buying the tickets to Tarshish, he went down to the hold of the ship, where he went to sleep. Now, we are going to see later on that Jonah gets cast down deep into the sea, possibly deeper than any person who has ever been, even to today. Maybe we can call here the first submarine ride. Basically, Jonah was in the lowest point in his ministry. That was the lowest point of his Christian life. Okay, let's go back. So we find here Jonah is sleeping. What happens next? Let's continue. So the shipmaster came to him and said unto him, What meanest thou, O sleeper? Arise, call upon thy God. If so be that God will think upon us, that we perish not. And they said, every one to his fellow, Come, and let us cast lots, that we may know for whose cause this evil is upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell upon Jonah. It's self-explanatory. I don't have to explain what is happening here. God somehow used the draw of lots to point Jonah. And these pagan sailors looked at Jonah, and he begins to admit that he is a Hebrew. That's what he says here. And then said they unto him, Tell us, we pray thee, for whose cause this evil is upon us, that is thine. What is thine occupation, and whence comest thou? What is thy country, and of what people art thou? And he said unto them, so a lot of questions they started asking Jonah. So Jonah is saying, I am an Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, which hath made the sea and the dry land. Then were the men exceedingly afraid, and said unto him, Why hast thou done this? For the men knew that he fled from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Now this is very interesting. This must not have been the first time that these sailors would have heard about God the Creator. They have been worshipping their own pagan gods, but this may not be the first time that they would have actually heard about the true God, the God of Hebrew. Because when Jonah says, listen, I've been running away from God, these men were instantly frightened. Why would they be frightened? Because they knew they would have known about what God had done in the life of the Israelites. They knew that the true God was much different from the God that they were worshipping. Are we, as Seventh-day Adventists, as God-believing true Christians, sleeping as well today? Are we comfortable in our walk with God? Are we comfortable in our church, in our homes, in our families? And then when we look around, there's so many things happening. And it doesn't bother us. Many people who need to be told about God are not told. Why? Are we sleeping? In verse 13, we see, nevertheless, the men rowed hard. We see before this verse that Jonah says, okay, it is me, just throw me out of the sea. In spite of that, they tried their best. They started trying to maneuver the ship to guide it to safety. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to bring it to the land, but they could not, for the sea wrought and was tempestuous against him. These mariners, probably they were very, very experienced sailors, and they knew what they were doing. But no matter what they tried their best to get back the ship from the storm, but they had no choice but to throw Jonah into the sea. But there's an amazing thing that happens in between all the things that happens. You see that in the verse 16. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly and offered a sacrifice unto the Lord and made vows. What a great thing to happen among all these things that was going on. Jonah was not being obedient to God. He was actually running away, as we see in this book. But even in that situation, God is able to use him to be a witness to these pagan sailors, to the extent where they made vows and offered sacrifice to the Lord. How much more could have been done if Jonah was obedient to the Lord the first time that he asked him to go to Nineveh? Verse 17. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. The key word here is prepared. God specifically made a fish. I believe it may not be a fish which was already there, fishes that we know. He prepared the fish especially for this purpose. God is the one who created it in the beginning, and I'm sure He is able to do that anytime in our lives or in the previous lives of people. He is the God who we see. We have in the whole of the scriptures, we see so many miraculous things happening. We have seen the walls of Jericho just crumbling like that. They didn't do anything. It was God's doing. In Jesus' life, you see, He just touches people, they get healed. He touches the face of a child and the child rises from the dead. We see Daniel in the den. The lion's mouths are shut. So many we can count. Jesus walking on the water. So many things that cannot be explained can happen by the power of God. And I'm sure that this is what God did as well. He prepared fish especially for the purpose of carrying Jonah in the belly. Sorry, it's not happened before. When children hear the story of Jonah, they would say, Jonah and the whale. Okay. I don't believe it is a whale. If you don't know, the Bible just says prepared a fish. But when I was trying to find what this could be, it actually means it was a creature We don't know if it is even a fish. Okay? The actual language behind the words that is mentioned in the original language means it was a creature which God made. So Jonah was swallowed by, you can say, an unidentified creature which was specially prepared for him, and he was in the belly for 3 days. Scientists or skeptics may not believe this, they may have a problem with this, but the Bible says it, and so I believe it, and I hope it is the same with you all as well. Now, Jonah went through all these difficulties. Okay, he had to go down to the bottom of the sea. It was only when he was at the bottom, after going through all these things, that he decides that he needs to pray. And that's where we start the next chapter, chapter 2, and look at the prayer of Jonah. Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly, and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me out of the belly of hell, cried I, and thou heardest my voice, for thou hadst cast me into the deep, in the midst of the seas, and the floods compassed me about. All their billows and their waves passed over me. Then I said, I am cast out of thy sight, yet I will look again toward thy holy temple. The waters compassed me about, even to the soul. The depth closed me around about. The weeds were wrapped about my head. I went down to the bottoms of the mountain. The earth with her bars was about me forever. Yet hast thou brought up my life from the corruption, O Lord, my God. Couldn't have Jonah prayed a prayer before he decided what he is going to do? Would it have been better for him to have prayed when he was tempted to run away from God in the first place? Okay, just to recap the experiences of Jonah again. So we saw that Jonah was down in his relationship with God. He went down to Joppa. Then he went down into the hold of the boat where he was sleeping, and he was cast down into the water, and he was cast down into the belly of the fish, and now he was cast down into the depth of the ocean. Jonah has gone down so far that we can say Jonah has hit rock bottom in his life. God had called Jonah. He had appointed him a task, but instead of believing and responding to the call, Jonah paid a price to buy a ticket to Tarshish. God has called each of us to finish the work entrusted to us. The task that is given to each of us may be different. Each individual may be given a different task. The question that we need to ask for ourselves is, have we bought a ticket to Tarshish? In other words, what is our excuse today? Is there something in our mind that we are trying to justify to get out of doing the work that God has entrusted us? I don't know what it may be. It could be anything. It could be really a very, very important thing in our life for us. Remember the parable that Jesus says about the invitation to the wedding. People give all kinds of excuses. And they were all genuine, very important excuses. One of them said they bought an oxen and they had to go care for it. And one of them said he has purchased land and he has to tend for it. And one of them says, I got married and I need to take care of my family. All these are things that we need to do. Yes, they are important in our life. But is that our ticket to Tarshish? No matter how important our reasons may be, always reasons that we give to put God's work away from us is just excuses that we make. Once again, so I want to ask all of us, including myself, what is our tickets to Tarshish today? What are our excuses? I found a text which I may have shared this before, but it keeps ringing in my mind every time. Christian Service, page 111. In it, Ellen G. White is shown a vision, and in the vision of the night, a very impressive scene passed before me. I saw an immense ball of fire fall among some beautiful mansions, causing their instant destruction. I heard someone say, "We knew that the judgment of God were coming upon the earth, but we did not know that they would come so soon." Others with agonized voices said, "You knew? Why then did you not tell us?" We did not know. On every side I heard similar words of reproach. Can you imagine what is happening here? So the end of days are coming. They're seeing fires and everything coming in the sight. We as Adventist Christians claim to know the scriptures very well. And when the fires, everything is coming, we are saying, "Oh, I knew this is going to happen." And when you say that, those around you are saying, "You knew this? Why didn't you tell me that you knew? I would have been prepared for this." Let us not be in that position where we are answerable to God for the loss of another soul. If our life is not full of godliness, it is going to be filled with something else. It can't be empty. It has to be placed with something else. Maybe maybe our education, full of our education. Maybe we are so engrossed in our works. In education, meaning I know everything. Is that what is filled in us? If we are not filled with Christ, we are going to be filled with something else. That should actually not be there in terms of our Christian life. Jonah was called to be useful to the Lord. He had been called to do something mighty for the city of Nineveh. He was called to be filled with the Holy Spirit and to go and convert this whole city. But as we saw here, he turned around and said, "I am going to be full of myself. I am going to be worried about myself. I don't want to lose my life." And that is what got him into so much of troubles that he went through. And when he was in that trouble is when he started calling on the Lord. Could it be that some of us, some of the trials that we are going through in our life is because of that? Like how Jonah went through, of not listening to what task that God has given us to do. We all need to humbly pray that we will all be filled with the Holy Spirit. Not with our own wisdom, but as we study even in the book of Acts, they were all waiting for that. They all were in one accord, and they all, we studied in today's lesson about on the day of Pentecost when they were filled with the Holy Ghost. I pray that it will be our experience today. I'll wind up here. Maybe the next time when I preach, I'll continue from where I left here, so that we can know a little more about the book of Jonah. Maybe we can look at some of the interesting things of why did God actually prepare the fish? Why not something else? Why was it a fish? We all know that the whole city was saved. what was Jonah's reaction? These are some of the things that we can look at maybe next time when I get an opportunity to preach. Just to close, if you don't remember any of the things that you have learned, maybe I skipped it. Okay. If you don't remember anything, just remember at least these 2 points. No matter how far in our life we are, no matter if we have hit the rock bottom like what Jonah has done, no matter how our relationship with God is, God will always hear our prayers. He loves to hear sinners' prayers. And the next thing is, if you believe that God has called you to do something, just go. Don't make excuses.